Hello dear students. So in this video lecture we will understand the compilation process of the .NET framework, right? So let's start. So for achieving the language independency, we will look the compilation process, right? So if you use any language, there will be a compilation process of that programming language. So in this .NET framework, the compilation process is done in two parts, right? The first phase is done by the language compilers, right? So if we compile a particular language which we are using that will support that supports the .NET framework, if you compile that language, it will convert the compiler will convert a particular language into the intermediate language, right? So the first phase is done by the language compilers, right? So now next, the second phase is done by the a compilation process that is called just-in-time compiler. So what this just-in-time compiler do? It will convert that intermediate language to the specific machine language, right? So the second phase is done by just-in-time compiler. Right. So we will understand the two phases of this compilation process in next slide. So this is the representation of the compilation process in a diagram, right? So for compiling any language, we require a compiler, right? Uh, for example, if we are using VB as a language, right? So I require a compiler to compile that particular language. So the compiler name is VBC, VB Visual Basic Compiler. So this is compiler, right? In the same way, if we use C# as a language, so we require a compiler to compile that C# code into a particular intermediate code. So for that we require a compiler. That compiler name is CSC, C# compiler, right? So this is also compiler, right? In the same way, if we use the other languages, we require the language specific appropriate compiler that supports the .NET framework. That language supports the .NET framework. Clear? So what happened here? Each compiler knows two languages, right? One is source language. So here, what are the source language? The VB is the source language, C# is the source language, and other languages that support the .NET framework are source language. So these are the source languages. So these are the source languages. And the other language that compiler known is the target language, right? So here, what is the target language? If we compile a particular language by a compiler, then it will convert it into a MSIL, Microsoft Intermediate Language. So here the MSIL is target language. Target language, right? So what happened? We can say that the source language may be different, right? Here the source language may be different. VB.NET, we are using VB as a source, we are using C# as a source, we are using the other languages that supports the .NET framework as a source language, right? But what does the compiler do? It will convert the language into a target language, which will be same, right? Either you use VB, either you use C#, either you use any other language, the target language will be same, right? So what does the MSIL do? In this MSIL, if we compile that particular program, the MSIL contains two files, right? MSIL either contains .dll file, the library file, or the MSIL contain .exe file, the executable file, right? So how come these two files? So if we use the main method, right? If we use the main method in our program, because main method is the starting method, or we can say that is the starting point of the execution of your code, right? So if we use main method in the program, then it will generate the intermediate exe file, executable file. If we use, right, if we do not use any main method, and we are using a library that we will use the later on, then it will create .dll file as MSIL, as a target language, which is called intermediate language, right? So this is the first phase of your execution, right? This is the first phase of your execution, which will convert the source language into a intermediate language, which is called Microsoft Intermediate Language, or we can say that it is MSIL. So we can use one MSIL in another because the compiled language, the target language is same, right? So we can use one MSIL in another because all the code in the MSIL is not a final code, right? Is not a final code, right? So it is something in between, right? So it is Microsoft Intermediate Language. Intermediate means it is in between, so it is not a final code. We can use that particular MSIL in one language into another, right? So we call it a PE file, right? PE, the portable executable file, right? Which is called portable executable file, right? So this PE file, the operating system will not compile that portable executable file. So what does this portable executable file? It will compiled by a compilation process or a compiler, which is called just-in-time compiler, right? Which is called just-in-time compiler. So just-in-time compiler is provided by the .NET runtime environment. So it is a component of CLR, right? So it is a component of CLR, right? Which will compile your intermediate code into machine code, right? So that your machine will able to execute it into a target machine readable code, right? So what does this just-in-time compiler do? It compile only a particular part of your code. For example, if you have created a form-based application, right? So if you have created thousands of forms, so one form contains the login information of you, right? So it will, the just-in-time compiler do not execute all the forms in the same time. It will execute your first login form, right? After that, if you have enter the credentials of login form, then it will goes to say another form, menu driven form, which contains the information, which contains some menus. So this just-in-time compiler execute the other menu driven form, right? You can also create the Android or Windows or iOS app with the help of Mono or Xamarin, right? With the help of this .NET framework. So for this, the compilation process is same. So it will convert it into intermediate, then just-in-time compiler will convert it into a machine code, right, which will run on the Android specific platform or iOS specific platform or in Windows platform, right? So just-in-time compiler will compile only that particular part of the your program, right? So here the MSIL for this just-in-time compiler, the MSIL Microsoft Intermediate Language is the source language, right? And this machine language, machine code is target, right? So here for this, I'll repeat again that in two phases of compilation, right? This is the second phase of compilation. Right. In the second phase of compilation, the MSIL will be treated as a source language, right? The portable executable, and the machine code will be treated as a target language, right? So this is the process of compilation of your program. So what will happen in the compilation process, your language specific source will compiled by a compiler into a intermediate language which is called Microsoft Intermediate Language. Then this Microsoft Intermediate Language is then compiled by a compiler called just-in-time compiler, which then converts your code into machine code, right? So this is whole compilation process in .NET framework. So after that we will do one sample program, right? Just printing a message, right? And we will check the compilation process by a demo, right? So for this you have to install any editor, right? Any editor in which you will write a particular 2 or 3 lines of code, right? Either you use Notepad plus plus, either you use Notepad, right? So just install it, right? Install Notepad plus plus. It is very user friendly, right? So install it. I will explain you the compilation process of both C# and VB, right? So C# is for BCA and MCA and MSCIT, and VB is for BSCIT. So first install a Notepad++, right? So let's start a basic program to check the compilation process in the practical scenario, right? So we will do these compilation process for both VB and C#, right? So first you have to create the code, sample code for both C# and VB. So I have created both the codes in Notepad++. So let's open Notepad++. So I have created 2 files here. One is sample C# and the file extension is .cs. .cs file extension is for C#, and sample vb.vb is the file extension for VB code, right? So let's understand the sample code. So in the first line we have used using system. So using system is a library, or you can say that it is a namespace which includes all the data types and classes and methods in the program, right? The second one is we have used a class called sample class, and then inside this class we have used a main method. In this main method we have just printed a message, welcome to the first program compilation process demo of C#, right? and we have taken console. Console is a class which resides inside the system namespace, right? And write line is a method of this console class which is used to print a message in the screen, right? Here this statement, the namespace is terminated by this semicolon, as well as this write line method is also terminated by the semicolon, right? So this is the sample code for C sharp. In the same way, if we look the sample code of VB, we have replaced the using with the keyword imports, right? So here we use the namespace or library as imports system, right? We have used a module, sample module, then inside this module we have used the main method, the submain, and the same console dot write line, and inside this we have put it a line, welcome to the first program compilation process demo of VB, right? Then end sub and end module, right? Here we are not terminating the statement with the help of a semicolon, right? So we'll use this semicolon in a C sharp code, right? So let's check the compilation process of this both the codes which exist in VB and C sharp. Do not go to this code. We will do the coding part in detail. This is just a sample program for the demonstration of the compilation process. So this is for VB and this is for C sharp, right? So do you know where is this compiler of VB and C sharp exist, right? So for writing this sample program, simple first program, you do not need any IDE, right? You are thinking that I require that Visual Studio for compiling this simple program. So you do not require the IDE Visual Studio for compiling this simple program. Just you require a Notepad++ or any text editor, and your compiler exists in, if you check the C drive, right? In the C drive, go to this Windows, right? Inside this Windows, you have Microsoft.NET, and this inside this Microsoft.NET, you have the framework. Inside this framework, you have several versions of .NET framework, version 1.0, 1.1, 2.0, 4.0, right? If we click on this version 4.0, you will get the compiler here, right? For example, this CSC is the compiler for C sharp, right? In the same way, you will find the compiler for VB. Just JSC is compiler for J sharp, right? And the same way you will find the compiler for VB. If we write V, right, this VBC is the compiler for VB. In the same way, CSC is the compiler for C sharp. So in this path, you will find the compiler, right? So what you have to do for compiling the program, you have to open simple the command prompt, right? You have to write CMD over here, then you will get the command prompt, the black screen, right? For example, I have created two folders in C drive, right? I've created two folders in C drive. The first folder is C sharp program and the second folder is VB program, right? So inside this C sharp program, I have put it that sample C sharp.cs, the same code which I have shown you in the Notepad++. If you check, you can check with this added with Notepad++, is the same code, right? If you check this VB program, we have the same code of VB here, right? Added with Notepad++, right? So this is the same program, right? So for compilation, you have to simply go to that path, So first I am compiling the C sharp code, right? So you have to go to backwards, right? C drive, cd, I have put it C sharp. This is the folder C sharp program. Inside this, first I have to set the path of the compiler. So the compiler exists in the C drive. So I have to set the path first. .NET framework and 4.2. Copy this path, right? Copy this path and put set path is equals to, paste the path. Now you have set it the path of the compiler for both C sharp and VB, because both the compiler exist in version 4.0, right? Now for executing the C sharp program, you have to write CSC and the program name, right? This sample C sharp dot CS, sample C sharp dot CS, right? So in this way, this program is compiled, right? After compiling the program, this application file is generated, right? So this is nothing but this is MSIL file, right? This is intermediate file. So for executing this application file, we required just-in-time compiler, right? Which is done by the JIT compiler, right? So if you want to execute this program, you have to simply write sample.ex, sample C sharp .exe, right? So after entering, you will get the printed message, welcome to the first program compilation demo of C sharp, right? In the same way, if you want to execute the VB, this is the VB program. So you have to go to backward, you have to go to that folder cd VB asterisk. So this is the folder where your program exists. For compiling the program, you have to write VBC, the VB compiler, then sample VB dot VB, right? So in this way, you have compiled the VB code also, and you have generated this application file, the exe file, which is MSIL, right? For this executing the MSIL, you require just-in-time compiler. For executing this MSIL, so for executing the MSIL, just type sample VB .exe, the MSIL file.exe, and press enter. You will get the output of the VB code also, right? Welcome to the first program compilation process demo of VB. So in this way, we have successfully achieved the practical aspect of compilation process, right? So first you have to write the code, the source code, in either in VB or in C sharp. Then you have to compile that program by setting the path of the compiler, and for C sharp you use CSC and the file name .cs, and for VB you have to use VBC, the file name .vb, right? Then compile the program, and then for after the compilation you will get the intermediate exe portable executable file, which is then compiled by the just-in-time compiler, right? Just-in-time compiler compile the program of both C sharp and VB into the machine code, right?